So on behalf of IITD, I would really want to express our deep gratitude that you could take our time for us. And I would welcome all the students. And with these short words, I would request you to please take the platform.
Thank you. Dhanyavad. The subject is again exploring consciousness, course 2. So, last session we did a lot of theory. I hope the new students who are here may have gone through the old videos. We did a lot of theory on the Upanishads. We didn't do much practical, but we did a lot of theory on this. Now, therefore, while some theory is unavoidable, I would like to this time stress more on the practice. Yes. Now, when it comes to practice, even in a Vedantic text, like Vedanta is, if you look at Vedanta, there is not much of a practice that is prescribed. Or there might be chanting of pranava, one sadhana, and so on, but generally not. I want to point out that there is one particular section of the understanding of Vedanta that requires practice. Not just practice means not repeating what you hear and by rote and trying to, no, but actual practice. I am going to explain why, because in the last session I have tried to explain in some way. Now, in the understanding, when I say Vedanta, please don't think that Vedanta means only the traditional textbooks of Vedanta. From the understanding that I have, Vedanta means understanding that part of the Vedas which come at the end section. Which, let me explain this for all the students, new or old. When you say Vedanta, you see there are two words, Veda and there is Anta. You know what is Anta? In Hindi also Antim, Anta, and Veda, study, the textbooks which we have, ancient textbooks, not the new textbooks. So, the Vedas have, this we have to understand clearly, because when you understand, one shouldn't think that this part we are dealing with is different from the Vedas. No, they are the same. But the Vedas have 4 sections. This is what we need to understand. The first part we are not dealing with here is more, they are the Samhitas, the Samhita portions. We are not directly dealing with the Samhitas here. The Gayatri mantra and so on actually come from the Samhita section, right. Then we have the next one, which are called the Brahmanas. They are also Vedas. They are all Vedas. When I want to include all this in the word Vedas, which is why it is actually so. So, the next section after Samhitas are the Brahmanas. Now, the Brahmanas are those portions of the Vedas, those parts of the Vedas, which deal with the ceremonial aspect. That means how to do a havan, what is a yajnashala, how does one, all these ceremonial factors mean also daily worship and so on, they are included in the Brahmana portions. They are also Veda. Okay. Then comes another section which is called the Aranyaka. That means those portions which are studied in the Vanas. So, those portions which were studied in the forest academies or in the Vanas, in the Aranyakas, they are Aranyas, they are called Aranyakas. Now, the thing is that many of the Aranyakas are also included in the last part, which is called the Upanishad. Now, the last portion is called Upanishad. Now, in this Upanishadic portion, there is not much reference to anything else other than purely trying to understand consciousness, purely. This is Upanishad. Now, sometimes it goes directly saying some sentences which are called Shruti, which is the experience of great Rishi. So, oh no, wait, let me finish. So, all this is included in the word Vedas. Now, since the Upanishadic portion is what interests us because it purely talks about consciousness, we are studying Vedanta because end of the Vedas, last part of the Vedas. This is what it is all about. Forget about which school of Vedanta. The end of the Vedas is Vedanta. Now, if that is so, is there some particular technique to study Vedanta? Is it just to study by heart? Those days people studied by heart because it was not put in writing till very late. They had to by heart it, then repeat it and so on. Is it that, or is it a dialogue between two people, or dialogue between many people? Why I am saying all this, I want to remove the mystery of this Upanishadic and Vedic studies. People think it is just somebody's imagination. No. It was done in a very healthy fashion. It was done with great attention. It was not as though I am saying so you believe it. No. That is not the way the Upanishad, which is the last part of the Vedic studies, handles it. Now, one reason why it's called Vedanta is because it comes at the end of the Vedas, after the Aranyaka portion. Also, another reason is it is understood by the rishis that those who have understood the essence of the Upanishads, which is basically exploring consciousness, are people who have studied that beyond which nothing is to be understood. Now, this is a little difficult to digest. As we go along, I will try and explain what they mean by that. What they mean by that is, when you finish the study of this last part called Vedanta, all the learning that is possible through your sense organs, 5 sense organs, and the brain that processes it, has come to an end because something else opens up, a new horizon opens. It's not as if everything is ended. One ends and the other begins. It's almost like saying this is physics and there is metaphysics. It's similar to that. This is why it's called Vedanta, because one kind of learning ends and another kind of learning begins. But this one kind of learning ends only through discussion, through understanding why we should close it and go forward. It's not as if you should. There is no shoulds. In Vedantic studies, there is no should. There is only could. This is how it could. I am telling you, unfortunately, it's been somewhat twisted around and various things have happened. Let's keep it clear. Okay. Now, when you study Vedanta, which is exploring consciousness, we are not going away from the subject. The basic factor is, the basic textbooks available to us today, there might have been other texts which we don't have now, are the Upanishads, of course. I will not go back and define the Upanishad for you because it's already been done last time. We just make a passing reference. Upanishad, then the Brahma Sutras. That's a completely different thing altogether, the Brahma Sutras. They are rather difficult and they have been commented upon by Gaudapada, by Shankaracharya, and they are very, very, in fact, many repetitions. You need to do it differently. So, I would say that there are 3 textbooks in the curriculum. Just as we have a IIT curriculum, like that we have a curriculum in Vedanta, in the study of Vedanta. One, the Vedas, the Upanishads. The other, the Brahma Sutras. And the third, which is in between, is the Bhagavad-Gita. Now, why has the Bhagavad-Gita been introduced in the curriculum? Because the truths which are described or discussed or explored in the Upanishads and still more in a much more deep but I would say somewhat complicated fashion are the Brahma Sutras. Now, the Gita is one text which explains the teachings of both in a simple form. This is why the Gita becomes part of the Prasthanatraya. The Prasthanatraya are these 3. The Gita is in the middle somewhere. So it is this Gita which puts the Upanishads in simple way so that one doesn't get so carried away and go round and round in circles. And it's a practical text because it is supposed to be something that was preached on a battlefield. Now, whether that battlefield or no battlefield, the book is presented, Vyasa has presented it in such a way that there is a talk going on in the battlefield between Arjuna, Krishna and Arjuna. Many people ask, how could in the middle of the battle something like that be taught? I would say if it cannot be taught in the middle of the battlefield of life, then it's not worth learning, because you can't just sit in the cave and meditate. It has to be applicable, it has to be explored, it has to have both theory and practice. This is where the Bhagavad-Gita is a good study, especially for a beginner who wants to explore the consciousness. Now in the Bhagavad-Gita, at the end of each chapter of the Gita, every chapter, there is a statement. I'm using it to, I'm going to quote it so that you understand why practice is important. Theory is important, of course. You don't do any experiment unless you have a theory and a hypothesis. I understand. But after that, you need to figure out through experiment. So, practice. In the end of every chapter of the Gita, it says, Iti Srimad Bhagavad-Gita-su, this is the Bhagavad-Gita. Upanishads is a study of the Upanishad. What does the Upanishad teach? Brahma Vidyayam, knowledge of the Supreme Consciousness. Not Brahma the creator, Brahma Vidya means Brahman, the ultimate Brahman, which is consciousness, pure consciousness, free of all limitations. So, the Srimad Bhagavad-Gita Upanishadsu, which teaches what? Brahma Vidyayam. But watch the next sentence. Yoga Shastre. This is where practical comes in. So, even to understand Brahma Vidya, which is the exploring of supreme consciousness, one needs to practice something, which is the Yoga Shastra, to understand this. It's so difficult for a mind whose instruments are not perfected to come to terms or to grasp this. So, and then Sri Krishna Arjuna Samvade and so on, the dialogue between Krishna and Arjuna, which is why dialogue has become such an important part of the Upanishadic study. Well, as an example, I'll give you a small example. Two examples I want to quote. I know we need practical and theory. I want to make the students especially, these are the youngsters who tomorrow scientists, to understand that like it is presented by some people, I won't say who, the study of the Upanishads and the Gita and the Vedas are not steeped in superstition. It's not steeped in, it's not in the principle of saying, oh, I say this so you believe it. There's nothing like that. It's a very free understanding. Of course, a particular brain which is not sensitive cannot grasp, that's a different story. So, the whole of practice of yoga is to do that. Anyway, two examples. You can afterwards check it in the Upanishad when you go back. There are a lot of translations available now. Unfortunately, most people have to depend on translations. So, anyway, so Chandogya. No, let's go to the Prashna Upanishad first. In the Prashna Upanishad, 3 students belonging to notable families who have studied the scriptures and understood consciousness and so on, from those families, they go to another teacher. It's probably Uddala Karuni, but I can't remember exactly, doesn't matter. They go to another great teacher, to a rishi. And they say to him, we are sons of so and so and so on. You have to introduce yourself, right? When you give an application, you have to give your background. I come to the IIT, I can't say I am from a family which has studied philosophy all my years. They say, but what's your interest in IIT? So, they say we are sons of so and so on. We have come here to study. the truth. So please teach us the truth. Now the answer is beautiful. The Rishi says, stay with me for 1 year. Stay with me for 1 year. At the end of it, watch the next sentence. I will teach you if I know. Now is that a belief system or is it an exploration? Tell me. It's an exploration. He doesn't say, oh, that's it. Okay, how much money have you got? Put it here. I'll no. For what money can you write a check? No. Worship me, so I'll teach you. No. Give all your house and everything to me, I'll teach you. No. What does he say? Live with me for 1 year. Which means what? The connection, these are very specific things between people. It's not a general. So when a student lives with a teacher for a year, the teacher explores the student and knows what are his weaknesses, what are his advantages, what is the best method to adopt to teach this child, this student. And the student gets 1 year to watch the teacher to figure out if this guy really means what he says or is he just a fake. You see, or not even a fake. Does he mean what he says? Students also have to figure out, right? If you go into a class and the professor talks to the class, if you don't know your subject properly, students are very intelligent, they pick it up in 2 minutes. So you need homework. So they say, stay with me for a year and then I will decide. And then he says, if I know. Why does he say if I know? Because the way of understanding or exploring consciousness is different from the other linear understanding of objects. So therefore, anyone who knows cannot say I know, because when you know, there is no I. The conditioned I has dissolved. So who knows? So this is what you call food for thought. This is food for thought. That's all I'm saying. That the Upanishad itself says, he who knows knows not, and he who knows not knows. It's not a conundrum to confuse us. Not Upanishad, nobody wanted to confuse anybody. They were not wasting their time. It's just to show that we have various understandings and definitions of the word know. So let's examine that, and therefore after that, if you find that something can come out of, I will tell you one example of how it's a very systematic, not systematic, I wouldn't say that, a very pure exploration of this world, and which leads you directly to the exploration of that which is behind all this, if it is there. Which is why he says, if I know. Right. So at the moment you don't have to suppose anything. You need to explore. Is this a scientific exploration or is it unscientific? I just need. And if it is a scientific, are there ways and means to figure it out? Yes. This is called the science of yoga, which is, when you say science of yoga, please don't confuse it with only hatha yoga or standing on your head. Yoga is a vast subject, which I want to cover in these next coming sessions actually. How to prepare the instruments of perception so that they can perceive what normally are not perceived. Are there other instruments of perception other than the five senses, and so on. So, okay, the second example. There is there are 11 principal Upanishads. Why they are called principal Upanishads? They are the oldest. Either they are from Samaveda or from Yajurveda and so on. Some are from the Atharvana Veda. Most of them are very old Upanishads. And they are also the 11 Upanishads which have been commented upon by all the important acharyas, commentators. So they are the principal Upanishads. Out of that, Prashna Upanishad, which I mentioned, is one of them. The other one of them is Chandogya Upanishad. In Chandogya Upanishad, there is another interesting story. Again, the father sends the student to somebody else to learn. The student goes and learns and comes back. You know how it is? It's wonderful to have home education. I fully believe in that. But your student who is your son or your daughter is not going to listen to you there. They will go and say, oh, I'll just go to the fridge and eat something and come back, and that thing is not there. But it is good in a way, but you cannot do it. It's very difficult to do it. Or he'll say, Dad, forget it, I'm going to do something else. So he sends him to somewhere else so that he gets some discipline. The Rishi's sons must have been full of energy, so naturally they are restless. So he sends them. So they go, and he goes and he comes back after staying with him for some time. When he comes back, the father asks the son, so have you studied anything? Can you define what you studied? Have you found the Satya that you seek? The origin of everything? So not in as I am explaining, I am just explaining in a simple way so you understand. But so the son says, I think I have. So he says, well, he says, he doesn't say, but when you say you think you have, either you know it or you don't know it. You can't say you think you know. So he says, okay, I'm going to give you something. Go there. You see that big banyan tree out there? Yes, I can see the big banyan tree. Those were the days when the sons also sometimes called their father sir. Yes, sir, I can see the banyan tree there. Then he says, okay, pick up a seed which has fallen on the ground. So he picks up the seed which has fallen on the ground. He says, now, peel the skin. Okay, he peels the skin. And now he says, what do you see? He says, I see the kernel, 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 inside, white color. We said, okay, peel it. He peels it. He says, what do you see now? He says, I see small little black seeds inside. He says, pick up one seed. So he takes it out. Throw the rest. Peel that seed. So he peels it. So what do you see? He says, I see nothing, father. Nothing. So the Rishi, the father, tells the son, it is from that nothing that this whole big banyan tree has come. I'm just in the mode of exploration mode. This whole banyan tree that you say you see nothing, this entire big banyan tree has come from that nothing which is inside, which you don't see. See, I'm not going to define this story. I'm just saying, see how the exploration happens. That this is, let's say, at a conservative estimate, many scholars who are still disputing 2000 years. Let me say, forget it, say 1000 years. Where did this come from? Where did this mode of education come from? Where does this understanding come without propaganda? So, this is the way we need to look at it, to explore. So, I said the Gita. Let's go back to this. So, the Gita lays great stress on Yoga Shastra. In fact, many of its parts, even all the 18 chapters are called yogas, which takes it out of the ordinary meaning of the word yoga. Starts with Arjuna Vishada Yoga. Arjuna is in sorrow. Now, please, one should remember that these are not physical things alone. They are things to do with the human being, with his emotions, with his... It's not just a physical, like studying an atomic structure. That doesn't react to you. But here it's a reaction between you and the human beings, between the teacher, between the student, because they are conscious entities. They are not unconscious. Well, in one way they are also conscious, but not in the way we know of. So, which is why emotions and the way we live in this life are in some way deeply related to the study of exploring consciousness. When you say the word consciousness, you are already talking about a living entity. Let's forget about whether living entity is a product of the brain or whether the brain is working, because at the moment we will go into that. Yeah, but at the moment, but it is conscious. We are not talking about unconscious entity, which is a material. In Sanskrit, it's called a padartha. We are not talking about padartha. We are talking about the atma. Atma doesn't mean atma means the feeling of I-ness. That's what it means. Generally, we associate the feeling of I-ness with the ego. Ego is fine. There are kinds of egos. There are crude egos, there are subtle egos, there are subtler egos. When it becomes so subtle, then there is no ego, there is only consciousness. We will discuss this in detail as we go along. Now, so it starts with Arjuna Vishada Yoga, which means the yoga of Arjuna's unhappiness or dissatisfaction. The more correct word would be dissatisfaction. Now, look at this. You are all scientists, you have, look, every inquiry, every research, every study starts with dissatisfaction. If you are satisfied, if Einstein was satisfied, forget Einstein, anybody was satisfied with all the old theories of life, I'm sorry, here physics, there would have been another experimentation, exploration to find out, is this true or is it not true? It would have been there. Look at anything. People have been sent to the gallows and killed because they said something original. You see? So, any study, any field of study, and more so in exploring of consciousness, requires one to be dissatisfied with what one already knows. If one is not dissatisfied, there will be no exploration into find out what is coming new. It will be still living with the old. We want to move with the new. Please, the study of the consciousness according to the Upanishads is nothing to do with the old. Of course, it was studied and discussed in olden times, but it is very new. It's every day new, because it is dealing with something that exists today, not with what was long ago. We are all conscious, right? So, consciousness exists with us today. It's not as if I was conscious during the Vedic age. Now I am conscious. So, it begins with that. And also, I said it is also emotionally connected, because it is the dissatisfaction and confusion and pain and sorrow of Arjuna that led him on to ask the question, what am I doing, why am I doing, where am I going? It is not merely a clinical study, it's not a material study, it is something beyond. It is to do with the mind, emotions, with you and me. They are all linked together. This is why the chapter starts that way. And then it goes on to Sankhya Yoga. Now, Sankhya Yoga is the next chapter. Sankhya is a very important part of ancient darshanas. You know, there are these schools of philosophy in India, they are called darshanas. Very interesting, the word darshana. You know, darshana actually means coming face to face, to see. There is the Mimamsa, Uttara and Purva Mimamsa together. There is the Nyaya. Nyaya is, you know what is Nyaya? The Nyayalaya, Uttam Nyayalaya is the Supreme Court. So, there is Nyaya, there is Purva Mimamsa, there is Uttara Mimamsa. Then these are the darshanas, Shad darshanas, 6. Then there is Vedanta. Before Vedanta comes Sankhya. Now, Sankhya is an ancient darshana whose founder is supposed to be Kapila. Not supposed to be, is Kapila. Kapila, the great Muni. He is so important that in Vyasa cannot resist the temptation of declaring in the Gita, when Krishna declares his glories, that among the Munis I am Kapila. That means predates Krishna, if Krishna has a date. Kapila. Now, it is very interesting. Sometimes I wonder if Kapila was an European, because Kapila in Sanskrit means golden haired. yellow haired. Maybe he was blonde, we don't know. Regarding this, I again want to tell the students that please give value to some things that come from also this country. Don't only because all great physical and material scientists are generally found outside the country, which is unfortunate, of course. I'm not saying they are great people. I'm not saying unfortunate because they are great. That we still have to count on that. That's what I mean. You know, even here, Swami Vivekananda, everybody knows, was a great soul whose study of Vedanta and yoga was par excellence, and who was a man who died at the age of 39, 41 or something, and did work which 100 people cannot do 100 years. And he was a person who probably wrote the simplest translation of the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali. It comes in a small booklet called Raja Yoga. Okay. Now this man, when he was wandering around in India as an unknown man, nobody valued what he said. Hardly anybody did. Then he went to the US. He went to Chicago and he attended the Parliament of Religions. He was recognized. When he came back, everybody recognized him. Unfortunate. It's fortunate they recognized him. What I mean is the tendency in us. Sri Ramakrishna Paramahamsa was his guru, almost unlettered man who could not even sign properly. I mean, he could barely sign his name. But look at the product, Swami Vivekananda, who was his disciple. Anyway, so study has nothing to do with this academic qualification, it has to do with understanding. Even if you have academic qualifications, understanding is very important. If you don't keep it up, if you keep that up, then your academic qualifications are bound to go up again, because you are not happy with just the titles and names and things like that. Anyway, so Ramakrishna Paramahamsa said one day, one visitor who used to come very often to see him, he said, and Sri Ramakrishna used to tell him, oh, you are a man with a lot of intellectual qualities which I don't have. You should read the Gita. Man never read the Gita. One day the same man comes to him and says, oh, the Gita is a wonderful book, one should read it. So Ramakrishna in his native wisdom tells somebody sitting here in Bengali, he says, look here, this guy, you know, in Bengali is a very normal, dekhun, look here, this guy, I told him for years to read the Gita. He says he didn't read it. Some Angrez must have told him now that the Gita is a very good book, so he is reading it now. I am nothing against Angrez, I am just saying the attitude that we have. So we should respect Kapila not because he is from abroad, I am just joking. So anyway, I think he was quite here. In those days the world's geography was quite different, so we don't know where he belonged to, but he was Kapila. Now Kapila's darsana is Sankhya, Sankhya darshana. When this COVID and all this is gone, I would love to come to a classroom and talk face to face, really. This is terrible, this is online. Anyway, so now then you can see the reaction of the student. It's a really different affair altogether, you know. They might even say I'm bored and things like that, it's okay. So, but I'll definitely do it at some point. COVID is not going to stay forever. So, now in Sankhya, the meaning of Sankhya is also figures, Sankhya, numbers. It's also to do with numbers. That's one Sankhya. This is the philosophy of Sankhya, of Kapila. So that is one darshana. Why I said all this is because there are 6 darshanas. So starting with Mimamsa, which is again divided into Purva and Uttara, Mimamsa. Then you go to Sankhya. Then from there to Nyaya. Nyaya also is where Tarka is studied, the science of discussing and arguments. Then from there you go to Vedanta, and then Yoga. Yoga Darshana. So, yoga is also included in the traditional 6 darshanas. Why? Because they are all interlinked. Okay. So, so why did we come to this subject? Anybody? Sir? Madam? Why did we come to this subject of Yoga Darshana, Kapila? Some feedback, please.
Finally, you wanted to say something to do with the practice.
Practice. Yes, sir. So, yoga is one of the darshanas, you are right. So, it is a very important part of understanding consciousness, exploring. In fact, the ultimate essence of yoga is to understand the consciousness. No matter what way you do it, you may be doing it through, see, there is also karma yoga, there is Sankhya Yoga, there is Dhyana Yoga. The 6th chapter of the Bhagavad-Gita is Dhyana Yoga, yoga through meditation. Jnana Yoga, yoga through understanding. Purushottamaya, yoga of the Supreme Person. Sannyasa Yoga, the yoga of renunciation, and so on. So, it starts with dissatisfaction. So, we are dissatisfied, we are not happy with understanding what we think is consciousness, therefore, we are exploring it. This is something you should keep in mind while we go into it. And since we are exploring it, there may be differences of opinion, we'll have to explore it together. I personally believe, which again is based on the Vedic statement, that we have to go at it together, you and I. We cannot separately do this. Even you know and I don't know, or I know you don't know, still, unless we work on this together, we won't be able to get there. There's a beautiful statement in the Rig Veda, Sangachatvam. Let us walk together. It doesn't mean that we should form a party. Sangachatvam, let's walk together. Samvedatvam, let us study together. Samvomanam sijanatam. With our minds put together, may we understand. So, when I am sitting in this lesson, in this discussion, I am not sitting with the idea that I know. There may be certain things which I have explored, but I am not sitting with the idea that I know and you don't know. I am saying let us look at this question together, you and I, which would be the Upanishadic mode of looking at things. You know the famous mantra? I am saying this because today is the first day. We need to have all our priorities clear, everything clear. So, don't think that I am preaching, okay? That's what I am trying to say. I am not preaching anything. So, we are exploring. There is a beautiful mantra which comes in the beginning of many Upanishads before we begin teaching. It's a beautiful mantra which can be adopted in all universities, in all teaching establishments, and it is Sahana Bhavatu. We all have heard that chanting, Sahana Bhavatu, Sahana Bhunaktu, Sarviryam Karavavahai, Tejasvina Vaditamasthuma Vidvishavahai. We have all heard it. So, this is the mode of learning. The main key word in Sahana Bhavatu mantra is Saha. Saha means you and I. Saha cannot be one person. Saha. Saha. Sahav. In Kerala, where I come from, it's a common word. Saha means comrade, used by communists. So, Sahana Bhavatu. May both of us be protected, you and I. Protected from what? Protected from distraction. Protected, one of the major distractions is that the narrow definition we sometimes give for science and non-science. Sometimes the definition is very narrow. May we be protected from that kind of attitude. May we be protected from disturbances and distractions, because this which we are studying requires complete attention and one-pointed attention. To prepare oneself for one-pointed attention is the job of yoga. Okay. So, Sahana Bhunaktu, may both of us be nourished by what we learn, food for the mind basically, but also nourishment for the body. If you don't have a properly nourished, healthy body, you cannot have a healthy mind or go into an exploration of a subject which is so deep, consciousness. It's very easy to say consciousness. You can imagine how deep it is. Nobody, I think, has really gone into the depths of consciousness, including me. Some layers, yes. So, Sahanau Bhunaktu means may we both be nourished, both of us. Saha. Saha Viryam Karavavahai, may our vitality increase. We need a lot of vitality. This is not a subject which is studied after we have retired. When all our virya is gone and we don't know what else to do. I retired, so I am doing Vedanta now. No. It starts from a young age, you need to understand. When I say young age, not retirement. Saha Viryam Karavavahai. It also means that I have enough fuel. You have seen that in the Upanishads and Vedas, when a student went to a teacher, they went with lighted fuel, some with pani, some with pani. That means lighted fuel in hand. It's a symbol. It simply means, those days fire was important, so physically also it's important. You couldn't light, there are no matchbox, you cannot readily light a fire. It also means that I go with sufficient fuel in me, not when it is all done and wasted and gone. Saha Viryam Karavavahai, both of us have virya, vitality. Tejasvina Vaditamastu, may the tejas in us, you know what is tejas, the light of understanding, be lit in both of us. Ma vidvisha vahai, let's not fight with each other. Ma vidvisha vahai, let's not fight with. Now look, now here I want to, in 5 minutes, tell you the difference between dialogue and argument. A dialogue is when you and I are sitting together and trying to find something. You say something, I say something, we try to figure out. It's like two friends sitting on a bench in a beautiful garden, same bench side by side, and saying, here is a problem, let's work together and sort it out. Not fighting and arguing. When I say argument, which means I have already concluded, this is what it is. You have already concluded, even without any study or maybe with what you have studied, that this is what it is. Now when you have said I know and I say I know, then they cannot meet. So instead of a dialogue, there is an argument. I am proving my point, you are proving yours. While a dialogue, a samvad in Sanskrit, is a discussion between two people who are exploring the truth, who are trying to find out the truth of something. This is a dialogue. So, ma vidvisha vahai, let's not fight with each other, is a beautiful statement to end this prayer. I'm not talking about you and me, you can fight if you like, but it is like a dialogue between you and me. I'm using the word you first, please remember, not me. Even though the Upanishad says saha, both of us. So with this we will start. So one more, one statement and then we will get still half an hour to have a discussion with students, teachers, professors, anyone can take it up. So as I said in the beginning, this time while we will do some theory, I will also like to go into some of the practical aspects of exploration of consciousness. So with that, I would now stop this class, this discussion, and I am open to half an hour we have today to any clarification from what I said, or preferably from what I said rather than go to the next, because if in the next session I might be answering the questions which you might be asking today. So it is better that we limit our questions to what we discussed today for half an hour. But you are free to do anything, I am just my suggestion. So yes. I rest my case. As the Attorney General says, I rest my case. Now it's up to you.
So I think we can request the students to raise their hands. Then one by one they can switch on their videos and ask their question.
Do you have any questions? Before you go to the students, do you have any questions to discuss? Okay, fine.
May I ask a question?
Sure,
So
Professor. Yeah.
You were saying about the seed being open and the last thing they see is nothingness. And then from that nothingness, this entire Brahmanity comes. So often I wonder, because, is that, and when some point, through your practice, you get to the point where you see the shunya. Is that the same thing that you see, or is it, slightly different in the field of consciousness? I do not understand that part.
Yeah. So when you said, now you have two things you have discussed. One is that when you practice on site, the other is what I said, right? Now in this story, in this particular story of the Upanishad, Chandogya Upanishad, when the son is asked by the father to look, he is talking about consciousness as being close to nothing. I mean, because there is no other definition you can give to it. So therefore he says, it is from this essence that this whole thing has come. That is the meaning actually. So since you put in the word practice, when you practice meditation, for instance, some form of meditation, at some point everything is gone, if you are lucky, and there is only something which you cannot define. You can call it shunya or quiet, something, nothing is occurring to your mind, everything is quiet, which is a good thing from the point of view of practical meditation. But what happens, since you are unless you are a meditator, you can't say this, you can't ask this question. That is the time when we need to be little alert on that it doesn't subside into deep sleep from meditation. You see, when the mind becomes very quiet, as you said, shunya is not the word, when it becomes absolutely quiet, then it is resting, and all these years it has been always working, the mind. So when it rests, it's a golden opportunity for the mind to then relapse into deep sleep, which is called sushupti. So this is the point when one has to be alert. If one is alert, then it will not subside into deep sleep, but it will go into something deeper, which is conscious, which is the essence of consciousness, the seed of consciousness, since we are discussing a seed. So it is similar. Difference is, if this thing which you call shunya, if at that time, well, the Buddhists use the word shunya only. Yeah. If you ask, if in Vedanta it's called Purna, it doesn't matter, there are two terms. Now, if it is during this time called nothingness, which you call, if there is some wisdom that comes to you, something which you wouldn't have learned through your five senses, then it certainly is not ordinary shunya, but it's extraordinary shunya, which can be called Purna. If it does not, then it is merely relapsing into Sushupti, which is also not bad, because Sushupti is a very essential part of our system. So the other day somebody was telling me that whenever he meditates he feels sleepy. I said, so you can stop taking sleeping tablets now. Meditate. Not you, sir. I'm talking about somebody else. So, relevant question, yes. It's not the same, but it is very close to what we are talking about. This seed, where there is nothingness. See, and also, Professor, when you say nothing, it doesn't mean nothing. If you split the word, it is no thing. There is no thing occupying your mind, but it is not blank. If it is blank, you wouldn't be aware that you are in that thing. So, what we are seeking is that which is aware of even that shunya. This is what we are seeking. Probably that is the seed of consciousness, probably, since we are on a discussion. I don't want to say I know, I am saying could be.
Thank you.
Sure. Should we go to the students or what do we do?
And may I ask one question?
Yes, please.
Sir, in Patanjali Yoga Sutra, it is said that during Nidra, abhava sunya, means there is nothing. Then it is considered as vritti also.
It is considered a vritti. Correct, correct, correct.
Vritti, yes.
Right.
But the sutra says that there is nothing.
Yes.
Abhava sunya, nidra. It is called nidra.
No. Okay, okay, okay.
ठीक है, तो मतलब वहाँ पे वृत्ति भी नहीं, मतलब कुछ भी नहीं है, then it is considered under वृत्ति also. तो मतलब मुझे ये समझ तो वो वृत्ति कैसे है?
Yes, even in Vedanta it's considered, deep sleep is considered a vritti. Now understand this. When you say sleep, okay, it is most of our sleep is full of dreams, right? Even though we are deeply asleep, in fact the most relaxing sleep according to psychologists is the REM, which means rapid eye movement sleep. Now REM. Now rapid eye movement means that you are not actually sleeping, but you are dreaming, because eyes are watching scenes. Pat, 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 pat. Thoughts are moving. So they have not ceased. The thoughts, the chitta vrittis have not ceased. They are still there. When they call sleep a vritti, now I will explain another way. I go into deep sleep, okay. Suppose there is no dream also. But when I wake up, all the vrittis come back in Jagrat. Yes or no? So where were they hiding? They were hiding in seed form in deep sleep. But in the state which is called Kaivalya, there is no seed also, it's gone. So that is what you are aiming at. So to distinguish between the state of freedom called Kaivalya and deep sleep, they have said that the deep sleep also has vrittis, but the vrittis are, what do you call that? Not manifest. They are in seed form still there, because when you wake up they come back. Suppose you experience that which is Turiya in Vedantic terms, in yogic terms Kaivalya, even the seeds of the vrittis are gone. So when you wake up, these vrittis are not there. You may imagine a vritti or use a vritti for utilitarian purposes, but they are actually not there. The seeds have been destroyed. That is why sleep is still called a vritti, because it has not given you kaivalya. In a way it has given you freedom, because you are not thinking of anything, you are fully see, and you are enjoying. Let me tell you this, whether you are dreaming or whether you are not dreaming, which is very rare, short periods, you are still enjoying, right, something. Yes, you are enjoying. How do I know I am enjoying? Because I am not there to know that I am enjoying. I am there, but I am not aware of that. I am not aware of myself. When I wake up, I feel, that was a blissful sleep. In fact, it is so blissful that even if the alarm goes 10 times, I switch it off and try to sleep, because I want to go back to that bliss. I don't want to get up. Everybody wants to sleep. Somebody told me aim of life is to sleep. Anyway, that is not our discussion. We leave it. So everybody wants to sleep. And note this, in sleep, we are all equal. The scientist, the non-scientist, you, me. When you go to sleep, we are sleeping. We don't know who we are, what we are, nothing. But all the vrittis of who we are, what we are, our egos, everything is still there in seed form, because when you wake up it appears again, arises again. So it's not as if there are no vrittis. Sleep is a vritti because it contains the seed of vrittis in non-manifest form. That's why. I hope.
Thank you, sir. One more question.
Yes, yes, please. This was a very studied question. Very, very well studied question with yoga. Yes, tell me.
Sir, another question is that we say that yoga chitti vritti nirodha. Then comes that tada drashtu swarupe avasthanam. Means that in Kaivalya form there is no seed of vritti, no seed of any sanskara. But we in our daily life, we eat, we think, and whatever we do,
Yes.
that depends upon some structured memory which is in our
Absolutely,
brain.
absolutely.
So how is that when there is no sanskara, no seed of any sanskara, then in Kaivalya state, how the person lives?
See,
Should have any memory or seed sanskar something.
you see, it's like this. When you see the rishis and the great yogis who have passed through Kaivalya, hopefully, theoretically at least, they live, they also eat, they also drink, they also behave, but they don't react. They have no likes and dislikes about things. They are not afraid of death above all. The normal person who is not reached Kaivalya is always constantly afraid of death. Those who have touched Kaivalya have freed themselves of all samskaras. There is no more fear of death for them. Okay. But while living in this world, as long as the body lasts, you might think that they are like you and me, but they are not. They have changed. See, one of the signs of Kaivalya is whoever goes there and comes back. Can't even say goes there. Whoever has it and comes back is not the old person anymore. For practical purposes, he may be living in this world, but his actions are generally not self-centered. This is the most important key to note. They are not self-centered. He performs actions because he still has a body and he is carrying on with his life, but they are neither the past desires of past lives, nor has he anything for the future. He lives in the present. I have seen such people who live in the present. They don't become zombies after Kaivalya. They are very alive. But none of their actions, thoughts or behavior is self-centered. You know what I mean? They generally live for others. Now, a person with vrittis complete, all the vrittis intact cannot live like that. Because there is always some self-interest, there is a desire attracting you here, there. So, you live in a world which is where sometimes you enjoy, sometimes you are in pain, sometimes you are attached, sometimes not only not attached, you hate somebody. So, all these things cease to exist. But believe me, even in that state, it is possible to live on this earth, live but not get caught up. That is the state of a person who returns from Kaivalya. Actually, there is no return from Kaivalya. Who is in Kaivalya, let us put it that way. You know that Kaivalya comes from the root, Sanskrit root Kevalam. And therefore, Kaivalya, one realizes that there is nothing but one consciousness. All other differentiations are mind-made. I was about to say man-made, mind-made. So, since it is mind-made, we have seen through it. They have seen through it. Having seen through it, they still live in this world, but don't get caught up in that. They don't get sucked up into that mess that we create. Roughly, that's what it is. Think about it. Tomorrow, if you get, yeah. I hope I did what I could. It's food for thought. It's for you to now consider this and go over it and come back. When you come back, if anything is missing, you can still get to me. Thank you. Nitesh ji. Yes.
Good evening, Emperor.
Yeah.
Good evening, Emperor.
Good evening. Good evening.
I wanted to ask a very basic question because I have sort of somewhat preliminary read about you, and you have met many masters, if I say,
Yeah.
of the unconscious and the conscious.
Mm-hmm.
So, my question was, how can we make sure that we do not mess it up when we meet a master? I mean, how to be the student I have because it is very difficult.
I know. I agree with you. I fully agreed with you. I'm lucky I didn't mess myself up. Actually, in this world that we live in, it's a difficult process. Actually, I agree with you totally. Now, I would say that when you go to a teacher in this subject, try to avoid people who say, "Look, this is the truth. You believe it. You can't question it. You can." That's not the right approach, according to me. Don't start anything with a belief system, but start with exploration and then figure out. If you can't define something, then you will start believing it. So, two things. One is also you are an intelligent man. So, if you stay with somebody for some time, you look through the problems, the pretensions. So, see if there is too much drama. A person who has touched the truth doesn't need any drama. You understand? I hope you understand what I am saying. There is no need of drama. Look, once when I was very young, I once went to meet a so-called teacher, guru, and I was made to sit there. Lot of foreigners were there, of course. And then I'm looking, and this person is not seen anywhere. Then I looked forward. There's a small stage, and there are some nice curtains. Silk curtains. Everybody is sitting. In the front row is reserved for foreigners. Then everybody is, then there is silence. And there is a beautiful, some music playing. Suddenly the screen opens and the teacher presents himself like a dancer on stage. Not wearing dress like a dancer, but just like when you open the screen, there's someone standing like, and then there's a big chair, he sits down there. And there is so much pomp and splendor and glory, glorified, that you miss the truth, you miss the facts. What happens is you get hypnotized into thinking that you must be a great man because of the paraphernalia around. So, there are certain things you need to watch for. A teacher, a spiritual teacher may be a very simple person staying quietly and doing his work. He need not have any paraphernalia. And there are no special robes that he needs to wear. See, today I wanted to, there was one shirt lying there, I had to pick it up and came. It's not important, I can wear a robe and all and sit. Then what happens? You are distracted by the robe and you begin to imagine things which may not be existing there. Or you go to some of the people, before they come, somebody comes and announces, oh, so and so is coming, move off, everybody said, then he comes and, you see, if you are a young man from the modern age, avoid all that. Try to find someone who will sit with you and talk to you and discuss matters openly. If he doesn't want to do that, then the teacher is not serious about it. And also make sure that you don't end up wasting your time. Because you are all serious people, you are doing scientific studies, you are doing technology, you are doing, this is also as much a systematic scientific system as anything else. Although because of this kind of fake presentations, it has lost its sheen. So watch out carefully. Watch for a good human being in the first place and then a teacher, because you cannot be a spiritual teacher who has understood at least some part of consciousness without being a good human being. It's not possible. That's why I said in the beginning, they are all interlinked. Your mind, your emotions, your consciousness is not a material object, it's a very conscious affair. So have these criteria.
Actually, I just basically, I'm sure I had an apprehension that sort of I will miss the opportunity. I mean, by teaching is fine. I mean, but
Yeah.
after desires in modern ages. I mean, because I have sort of heard of Al Thari, Greh Tyagi, I mean, the sloka. So, what are, I mean, basically, I mean, if hypothetically some master comes in front of me, how should I make sure that I don't mess up my chance?
This is what I was explaining to you. Watch for certain criteria. Too much of pomp, too much of publicity, too much of advertisement is a negative factor from my understanding. Okay. Secondly, make sure that the person has no vested interest in teaching you and that he is prepared to sit with you and discuss matters. And watch for certain things. I want to tell you something which was, you can hear me? Yes.
Yes.
I want to tell you something which was said by the famous Tulsidas. You know Tulsidas, Ramcharitamanas. Tulsidas said, काम, क्रोध, मद, लोभ की जो लो मन में स्थान, तब लो पंडित मूर्ख तुलसी एक समान. A teacher, a spiritual teacher, should be free of only satisfying himself, his desires. Krodh, if you ask him 10 times, if 2 times extra, if he gets angry, find another teacher. Or if a teacher says, when you ask him, shut up, then move. It is not worth wasting your time. Krodh. Or you will see that he is talking very nicely to you, but he will turn around and shout at the watchman. Then he is not free of anger. He might even get angry with a mosquito. So, Kam and Krodh, Mad, pride. If he says, I know everything, nobody else in the world knows anything. If you want anything, you have to come to me. Not only that, next time when you come, get a few people also along. Then he is building a career, he is building a business, he is not a spiritual teacher. You understand what I mean? So, this is mad, pride, also pride in learning. The Mundaka Upanishad has a beautiful statement. He says, those who have theoretically learnt everything, who have no personal experience, when they lead others, it's like andhai naiva niyamanaya tandaha, the blind leading the blind. This is not from Shakespeare. I think Shakespeare must have copied it from the Mundaka Upanishad. Because which is earlier, Mundaka or Shakespeare? The blind leading the blind. So, Kam, Krodh, Mad, Lobh, greed. If you go to the teacher, every time you go, he says, bring me something. Or you see that he has his food and he is always greedy about the food. See, these are some of the things which you can know only if you move a little closely with the person. So, before you commit yourself, be close to the person, go sometimes, try to meet him, and then you will figure out if he can discuss the matter with you, and should be open to discussion. The moment you start discussing, you close your mouth, then it doesn't work. So these are, I am telling you, because young people are nowadays little get bit lost. Last thing I want to tell you, if he says he has any shortcuts, run away, because in this exploration of consciousness there are no shortcuts. The cuts are all very long. It's like a science experiment. There are no shortcuts. You need to work hard, you need to research till you find, and in the middle of that discussion you have to discard so many things. So if somebody says I will give it to you like that, then that's not worth it. It's not going to work, because there is no such thing. Nothing can be given like that. So, and plus, again one more last, if the teacher believes that this is the only formula which he has and nobody else has this formula, and this formula is suitable for all people in the earth, then there is something wrong. You know why? Because each individual has to approach it in a different way. It may not be the same. There is no common factor. All human beings are, even though we have many common traits, we have to approach things in different ways. So these are some of the things that you have to look into before you approach a teacher, and don't get taken in by colorful robes. Nothing wrong in wearing colorful shirts, but I'm just be careful with this, because the Bhagavad says this is Kali Yuga. So there may be hundreds of people who want to behave like gurus but are actually not. We don't know. So this is Bhagavad, which says that in this time when people have so less intelligence and who have such short lives, how am I going to teach you? So it's like, not me, the Bhagavad says, I am trying to teach as much as I can. So these are some of the things you need to keep in mind before you. We have 5 more minutes.
Yes, Manu, I thought his question was more towards the disciple. How do I make sure that I don't mess up? Did I understand you right, Manu?
Yes, sir. I mean, because I'm more worried about myself than.
Yeah, so when you are worried about yourself, you should worry about who you go to, because you don't want to go to. So look, if you have a psychological problem, you have to find a good psychiatrist, right? You can't go to the wrong psychiatrist and then mess up totally. He'll give you all the drugs and then you will sleep all the time. You can do nothing. So that's what I meant. Don't mess yourself up. Even if you don't have a guru, that's even more wonderful, till you actually explore a little more and then decide whether you need one or not. That's also okay. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Some people, nowadays it's become a fashion, like there was a time when in a party people say, I have a heart problem, what about you, like that. Now the party circuit is, I have a guru, who is your guru, this is my guru, so it's become like that. So one has to be a little careful. You had a question?
So, sir, yes, sir. So now I know why I was not able to ask before, because it was so very much relevant now than if I would have asked, through a couple of questions before. So, sir, in today's lecture, what I gathered was that you very well explained how important Guru is, and especially when you gave example of Swami Vivekananda, and then you also spoke about a student who went to his Guru, and Guru said that be with me for a year and we'll find out whether we know something or not.
Right.
So my question is that how important are the practices, and how as a student I should look for the right practice for myself, especially in the case where I'm not sure like whether the guru I have is true guru or not, or I'm still a seeker.
And let me tell you this, it doesn't matter about the guru, but I should clear myself if I am okay. And there is no necessity to be in a hurry to find a guru. You know what I mean? there are texts available, books available, read them first. Now to YouTube is there, it's become better than iTunes now. So you can go through that and just study before you decide and zero in and say, oh, here, I think this person is better for me. Now one thing, if that person is better for you, he need not necessarily be better for somebody else. You see, we should also take note that if the student who comes to a teacher is not interested in following the methodology that this particular teacher adopts, he should be free to go somewhere else and find out for himself or herself. All I am saying is, don't be in a hurry to zero in, explore little bit, and then once you have explored and you think maybe this person is okay for me. That person is okay or not okay, we don't know. I can say okay, suits me, so let me try. Then in the end, if you think after a year or two, if it doesn't work, don't be worried about letting it go and exploring again. What I am saying is, people keep frightening you, saying, oh, don't leave that guru, you will get guru droha, and this is nonsense. No guru worth his salt will do anything to a person who goes away and finds somebody else. Why would he or why would she? Because this is not a vested interest affair. Somebody is exploring, he has done what he can with us. Maybe he is going somewhere else for better things or more things, we don't know. So, since that is the fact, that is the reality as I see it. Therefore, I am saying we are not discussing the question of seeking a guru or abandoning a guru or anything of that kind. We are saying one need not zero in so quickly and say this is my, or one can still explore without a teacher for quite some time before we say, maybe I can't explore this without someone. Till then, there is no harm. Be independent is my suggestion. My suggestion. And if you already have a teacher or somebody who considered to be a teacher in the family or something, don't show disrespect. I am only saying, see, no person who is a seeker or will ever have disrespect for anybody. But we should also be practical. That's all that I am saying. No disrespect meant.
So what I'm also So what I was also curious to know is how to identify a good practice for myself.
So are you going to attend some of the next sessions, or you are? Are you?
Yes, sir.
Then we'll work on that. This is only the first session. We'll work on that. So now it is 6:30. I need to leave. We've had 1.5 hours. And you said thank you to me. I must say thank you to you, because I think it's very important that we have these sessions, honestly, because it's my job, it's my work. So thank all of you. Thank you very much. See you. Professor Garg,
Thank you so much, sir.
see you. Thank you.